Ah, sorry, I couldn't resist. And no, I don't consider that as a spoiler. Maybe this one.
それじゃあ約束だよオムレツ。
But I guess not, as both scenes are taken from the game's prologue and are shown in the TV series as well. Anyway, this is the video review of Puella Magi Madoka Magica the movie The Battle Pentagram, an action game published by Namco Bandai and developed by Artdink. Artdink is behind a lot of games that go from train simulations to the recent Macross games, and quite frankly I'm surprised of the shortcomings found in the game, given the developer's vast portfolio. I assume that everyone knows the story behind the series, so I won't delve into too many details. The narrative arc in the game covers Homura promising a Madoka on the verge of becoming a witch after Walpurgis Night that all 5 Puella Magi girls will stop this event, before killing her and winning back time in order to fulfill such promise. After the brief tutorial section, the game starts 30 days before the fateful night, with each day divided into day and night segments.
どうやら先に進めるみたいだね。
During daytime, you choose one of the events available, that usually include 2 or more girls, and watch the story progress. This is clearly the section of the game where lack of Japanese knowledge hurts the most, and while a lot of events will be familiar or rather easy to understand, a lot of details are lost. From what I've gathered, the story starts off relatively light and gets darker near the Walpurgis Night, and unfortunately there aren't any big variations on what has been told by the animated series and movies. More interesting events are triggered when 2 girls reach a certain level of friendliness, and those tend to do a better job in expanding universe and characters.
とりゃーやねえ
It must be said that the voiceovers in these events are excellent, and among the 5 girls, Madoka, voiced by Aoi Yuki, shines above the rest, as she tends to have the most varied scripts of all. Unfortunately, these events are unremarkable on the graphical side, with just half-body portraits and static backgrounds trying to carry the weight of the story and the voice acting. Simply put, this kind of arrangement isn't enough to convey what everything else is successfully doing, with the most dramatic events carried by the voice acting alone, creating a huge disparity between video and audio. Getting everything animated would have been, of course, impossible, but more unique illustrations would have helped incredibly.
さやかちゃん、思いつきで言ってたの？まあまあいいじゃない。完成したんだし、バンバン使っていけばさ。
When night falls, it's time to hunt for witches. The Battle Pentagram offers 6 witches, each with their own environment and set of enemies, plus Walpurgis and a certain someone. Before each mission, it's possible to check friendship level between all girls and equip up to 3 special skills and 3 magical attacks. High friendship levels influence certain stats and give access to more powerful team attacks. Special skills and magical attacks can be upgraded via orbs and spellbooks collected during missions. This is effectively used to give an equal footing to all 5 girls, as it's very possible that 1 or 2 will fall behind the rest if you just stick to story missions. All girls starts with 10 uses of their soul gem. The soul gem can be used to replenish the magic bar for 1 charge, or revive when the health bar is depleted for 3 charges. Soul gem charges can be increased by defeating a witch and collecting her grief seed, and all charges available are replenished when starting a new mission. When down to less than 3 charges, it's still possible to revive, depleting all remaining charges, and this makes the Soul Gem a very exploitable resource. You can revive partners and vice versa by approaching them and pressing circle. This will consume only 1 charge from the revived Soul Gem. Missions can be faced alone or together with a second Puella Magi controlled by the AI, and when done, the two will increase their friendship based on your performance.
やったー、あの魔女を倒すなんてすごいじゃないか。強くなった。あんたの手数は。
AI partners aren't particularly great, and more often than not they will just stand still in front of enemies and delivering just a token amount of support. Their use of magical attacks is also very questionable. For example, Omura will use her time stop ability to stand still or run around doing nothing. This lack of support becomes painfully obvious against a large group of enemies and witches, where the chosen partner will die a lot, and essentially being useful just for calling team attacks. On a side note, with the game giving team battles such an important position in its structure, the lack of even local multiplayer is very weird. All normal attacks are executed by pressing triangle and nudging the left analog stick in various directions. Magic attacks are chosen via the D-pad and executed with square. Each attack has a recharge time and consumes a certain amount of mana. X is used for jump and circle plus a direction for dashes. L is used to lock onto enemies, and in conjunction with the right analog stick, it moves the lock between enemies, with up automatically switching to the boss, if present. R is a modifier of sorts, and used to trigger team attacks or guarding. Select is for the Soul Gem, and Start brings up the pause menu. Controls are simple, but lack some refinement. Pressing triangle once triggers 2 attacks, and with some characters, you'll find your Puella Magi waving her weapon in the air as the target is already dead but the attack animation isn't. Moving the left stick forward while attacking triggers a limited area of attack that consumes magic, and due to all Puella Magi's limited attack range, it's easy to trigger this kind of attack while approaching targets and finding a magic bar depleted sooner than you'd expect. Normal attacks are also modified by jumps and dashes, but attack options aren't many. Guarding is slaved to R and circle, so dashing around an enemy is the best option to avoid damage. Dashes and jumps feel incredibly stiff however, but this is a common problem with many animations. There is no clear indication when you're hit except for a decrease in health bar, no red flashes, no knockback. As most attack animations don't look as dynamic as they could be, this gives the whole fighting a very detached feeling. On the plus side, all 5 Puella Magis play differently, especially in their magics. Mami and Sayaka can keep their combos going almost forever, while Omura has a lot of area attacks with fast recharge times and low magic consumption. Kyoko can spam powerful magic that leave her vulnerable, while Madoka has piercing attacks. Unfortunately, this variety isn't found in enemies. All witches have 3 or 4 familiar types, but there isn't much variation in how they act. Some familiars are easier to be dealt with certain girls, but as long as you dash around enemies, you won't have many problems. Same goes for the environments. Each witch has her own set, but repetition, even within one stage, kicks in quickly. The witches themselves don't fare particularly better, with limited attack patterns. The game's main problem is the lack of variety. While missions sometimes offer different objectives, like searching for a particular item or simple environmental puzzles based on switches and teleports, their structure is essentially the same, and in a lot of missions you'll find yourself wandering empty corridors to reach doors after all familiars have been defeated. You would also expect that with 6 witches and 30 days, they'll show up at roughly in regular intervals. Instead, you'll be done with them shortly after 15 days, with the game throwing in witch recolors near the end to keep things going. And this makes the game slow down to a crawl, especially if you spend some time in free mode. Free mode allows you to replay completed missions for extra experience and grief seeds, but no improvement in relationship levels, so repeating all witches until the 30th day is an unnecessary thing. Game-wise, the story in the Battle Pentagram has 4 endings, and the game can be played multiple times to fulfill all requirements for the best possible. The game restarts from the first day, with weak enemies, while you keep everything. Despite all bad things I've said, the action part is decent enough for multiple plays, though being overpowered makes the weak points in mission structure more evident, and the game will undoubtedly drag after the first cycle. The Battle Pentagram is partially import-friendly. Everything is in Japanese, except for few things here and there, but menus are easy enough to be understood in a few tries. Mission structure, being very basic, is not a problem, and what you'll miss if you don't speak Japanese are the story events. There is the possibility that these events do not add anything particularly interesting to the Madoka universe, and if you count the many shortcomings of the action sequences, I'd say to skip the Battle Pentagram as an import. I will digress a bit here. I'm saying as an import because when you factor in a known but well done story, the value of the game, especially for fans, can be huge, and there is always the possibility that Namco Bandai will port the game in Western countries, as the movie got a theatrical release. Who am I kidding? They don't even port Gundam games here, they are afraid of doing anything else but milking the Tales franchise in the West. I hope they change their attitude toward games taken from animes, but yeah, it won't happen. I hope you have enjoyed this review and you'll stick around for more. Briareos Kerensky, over and out.